author Tom Frye further in his book, Here There Be Dragons, which is a really good book. I can't say enough about it. So buy it on Amazon. You really won't regret it, right? So how you doing, Tom?
Hey, I'm fine, Rick. I'm ready to roll again.
All right.
This is about our seventh time.
Yeah, really. Now, what exactly is Alex's heritage, along with his full name?
Well, Alex is of the Gypsies. He's a Shingain, which are the Gypsies who hid Jesus when he was a baby in Egypt. It's a sect of Gypsies that they called them the Shingain, and he is of that sect. But his name, Alex Thorne, is what he goes by in this realm. But Tanner explains to him that the Blackthorn family runs deep in the Valasar realm, and it is attached to the Horse Lords, which are the Gypsies
Right.
in that realm. I call them
let's see, Alex, the Gypsy line sequestered Moses or Jesus?
Jesus.
Wow, I never heard that story before.
Joseph and Mary went to Egypt to hide out from Herod, who was killing all the babies that were born under 2 years old.
Right.
They fled to Egypt, and the Shingain are the Gypsy clan that helped hide them.
Wow, I never knew about that.
Yeah, that's a cool story. Caught my attention.
Really? Huh. What further research can you do on that? I mean, what research told you about that? I guess is a good place to start.
I use that research in Beatrice, my Beatrice book also, because there's gypsies in Beatrice that live there to this day. And so their history, I had to flesh out their history, and I read up all about it, and I was fascinated by it.
Me too. I never heard of it at all.
Well, gypt is the word that gypsies come from, and that's from Egypt. I mean, that's where they originated from.
Right. Now, gypsies, you're saying, originated in Egypt.
This clan of gypsies, these Shingain.
Okay. Okay.
It's spelled Cingayne.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. What is Tanner speaking of when he says, now we're speaking of Tanner the Chan, right?
Yeah.
What is he speaking of when he says that the book would be a good place to start? What book?
The Lion War book has been stolen, and Cain Sin stole it because in that book are words in the Chaikin language that control the 7 dragons of the dread. It's they put leashes on them. It conquers them, controls them, and Cain wants to control them for his evil purposes. And
so the book controls the dragons, right?
Yeah, the words.
Okay.
Yeah. And Tanner wants Alex to retrieve that book because that's a good place to start, he says, on your quest. And I don't get into it again until about book 5, and then Alex comes across the book, and he has to resort to the Chaikin language to understand what the words are in order to control these 7 dragons.
Oh, I see. Anybody that's got the book has the words that can be used to control the dragons, right?
Right.
Now, can Cain still control the dragons after Alex gets the book?
Right now he does, and that's what Alex is battling against. This evil wizard, warlock, is what he is. He was a warlord of the Elven Kingdom of Mint, but he turned against the king because the king had his son killed.
Now, let's see if I got this straight. The book has magic words in it, right? To control the dragons.
Yeah.
When Cain speaks the words, it controls the dragon. But does Cain always knows the words, but does Alex learn the words also?
He'll use the words in order to defeat them. He won't use them to control them. And it'll be a different type of magic used in that to defeat and conquer them.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So when they both got the book, Cain had the book and he got it back to Alex, right?
Yeah, but the words will be
negated. Does Cain lose his power to control the dragons?
Yeah, his power will be negated when Alex actually comes into his power and uses them for his purposes.
What is the history of this book?
It's the Lion War, which took place a long time ago with the three races: the elves, the dwarfs, and the men. And the Chaikin, it was a Chaikin sage silvertree, Tanner's ancestor, who wrote this book and described the war that took place of all the races, the Shadow Realm, and it was an epic battle that took place. And it's when the Dragons of Dread first came to the land of Valasar. And
now, Cain only wanted the possession of the book to control the dragons, right?
Right.
Explain a little bit about that, if you will, right? Just elucidate further.
Well, Cain is he was a superhero back in the day, and then he fell from grace. And so anything he does right now is to thwart the light and to thwart the elves of the kingdom of men. And so by controlling these dragons, he's really got an upper hand. Now, these 7 dragons aren't the worst. Drakvorn is the worst dragon. He is he's a power unto himself.
And what's his name?
Drakvorn.
Drakvorn, okay.
They call him the Drak. And he's bad. He's bad to the bone, and he's not even in alignment with these 7 dragons. Matter of fact, he contests their right to mate with his daughter Elendria, the silver dragon. And there's a battle takes place later in the book, and you don't know whose side Drakvorn's on all of a sudden. First he's evil, and then he comes out of the blue and has a battle with these 7 dragons, and I won't spoil it. But
now, why did he attack the 7 dragons?
Oh, because they want his daughter. They want her Starfire. And
really?
Yeah, if they mate with her, they can get her Starfire, and Drak doesn't want that. He's protective of her.
Now, what's the Starfire supposed to represent?
Starfire is the magic in the book.
So they have the magic that the daughter embodies.
Yeah.
Would transfer to the 7 dragons, right?
Right. And there is an aura around people. You can see the aura, basically blue, green, red, and that's their Starfire. You can read their magic by seeing the aura around them. Right.
Now, let's see. How did Alex end up in 1945, and what day is it?
Yeah, it's a scene right out of my head with Tolkien and C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
There was a pub they used to hang out at called the Bird and Baby, or the Eagle and the Baby, and
really?
Yeah, and so they call it the Bird and the Baby, and they were involved in a coal biters club. Coal biters were the Norsemen who sat around close to the fire, so close that they could bite the coals, and
really?
Yeah, and
why would you do that?
Pardon?
Why would they do that?
To listen to stories around the fire.
Oh, got it.
And see these, and Alex is taken to to England, and where Tolkien and C.S. Lewis are having a conversation about his book.
This brings a question up of who were the 2 men in the pub, and describe them if you would.
Yeah, John Ronald Reuel Tolkien was a professor of English at Oxford, and Clive Staples Lewis was his friend. And actually, Tolkien converted Staples Lewis to Christianity.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Tolkien was a Catholic, but his belief system triggered something in C.S. Lewis, who was agnostic and basically an atheist before he met Tolkien.
Right.
And they had nicknames for each other. Lewis called him Tollers, and Tolkien called him Jack. So I bring that up. They're sitting in the pub reading on a day after their work at the university, and the wood stove is glowing in the corner, and Tolkien's got a half a pint of beer before him, and Lewis has an empty glass before him, and they're talking about his new character named Trotter.
Right.
Anyway, and Trotter is a hobbit who meets the four hobbits at Bree, and he's going to lead them out of the forest and to their destination, to Rivendell. And suddenly Tolkien realizes that Trotter is not a hobbit. He's a human. And he renames him Strider. And Strider becomes the king in the end of the book.
Really?
Yeah. Pretty interesting story.
Yeah, it is. I mean, honestly, when you get right down to the nubs, there's a lot to C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien they didn't know.
Yeah, but I understand that, because in writing some of my books, I invented a new character, and suddenly the story came to life, a whole new story. And it's like, wow, that's what happened with him, you know.
Now, from what other authors did the two men draw much of their inspiration, J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis?
Well, Beowulf was one, and Gawain and the Green Knight were others.
Really? Beowulf is one, right?
Yeah.
And Gawain and the Dark Knight?
Yeah, Gawain and the Green Knight.
The Green Knight, right?
Green Knight. And the Anchoring Wise. And I think that was anchoring means anchor, and it was spiritual truths. There are eightfold things to this book.
Right.
I don't think it had a lot to do with myth, but it might have. But what I read about it was it had a lot of spiritual truths in it. And
right.
But one of the other authors I forgot to mention in my book was George Mcdonald.
Oh, really? Who was he?
He was a religious fellow who came up with the Princess and the Goblin. And that opened up doors for Tolkien and Lewis, Mark Twain, Lewis Carroll. It triggered off a whole series of books from all these other authors. I think he was the father of fantasy.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. He was criticized by the church because he belonged to a religious order, and he was criticized for bringing fantasy and magic into play.
Really?
Yeah, but his stories inspired so many other writers. And he was kind of a burly-looking guy, long dark hair, big furry beard, and kind of looked like Rasputin.
Now, was he ever accepted in his lifetime?
Oh yeah. His books took off. He was Scottish, and
right.
His books took off in Scotland and England and Ireland, and yeah, he was finally accepted. And they say that his books got a lot of praise after the first criticism come from, I think, either priests or preachers, because I'm not sure if he was involved in the Catholic Church or if it was a Protestant.
Now, Tolkien and C.S. Lewis drew their inspiration from him. Is there anyone else that credits that? I mean, anyone else that they drew their inspiration from?
Well, no, I would say that the Norse mythology is what Tolkien really drew from his.
Okay. Okay.
A lot of the dragon, Fafnir, the Green Knight, Gawain. Those were the things Tolkien drew from. Now, C.S. Lewis, when he first started the Chronicles of Narnia, Tolkien was critical of him and said, you know what, you don't have talking goats, and you don't have talking animals, and
yep.
And C.S. Lewis stuck to his guns and continued, and
they wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, right?
Yep.
All right, who were James Barrie and Charles Dodson? Because you bring them up in the story.
Right. James Barrie was the one who wrote Peter Pan, and during his lifetime, he adopted the four boys of the Davies family, and because the Davies died early, the mother and the father did, and here James Barrie stepped in and became their foster father.
Wow.
Yeah, and he wrote about his brother was killed just before his 14th birthday. He fell through the ice, and
oh boy.
and his mother was grief-stricken for the rest of her life. So James Barrie tried to imitate his brother in all things he did, and so therefore the boy who never grew up came out of that whole experience.
Wow.
And that was Peter Pan.
All right. And Charles Dodson.
Dodson was actually Lewis Carroll. He was the one that wrote the Alice in Wonderland. He was religious too, and it was his the daughter of his bishop or his chancellor who he based Wendy on. He denies it, but everybody said it was just a complete caricature of her.
Wow.
Yeah, and evidently he got to read the story to her and put her in the story and honored her in that way. But yeah, he got a lot of inspiration from George McDonald.
Now, what did Charles Dodson write?
He wrote the Alice in Wonderland stuff.
Really?
Yeah. And his mentor
under a pen name or something like that?
Yeah, it was his pen name. Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Yeah. So Dodson from Lewis Carroll, who knows how that came about, but that's what he came up with.
Wow. You don't know where he got the name from, right?
Nope. I have no
That's
idea.
interesting to me, right?
Yeah, it doesn't explain that. I once took a pen name myself on my book about AIDS and teen suicide amongst gay and lesbian kids, and I went with the name Rob N. Hood. And my publicist happened to be Todd Sherwood, so it was kind of ironic. we laughed about that for quite some time.
Like, who was the character in the book? This name John Rowland. Who was he exactly, and what did he write was famous? And read, if you would, his poem.
Okay, I can quote that poem.
Right.
All that is gold does not glitter, not all who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither, deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken, a light from the shadow shall spring, renewed shall be blade that was broken, the crownless again shall be king.
Wow.
Yeah, that was such a powerful poem. I had to memorize that. I got a bunch of tokens running around in my head.
That's lovely. So John Rowland was really J.A.R. Tolkien?
Yeah, John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. Reuel was a Hebrew name that meant fighter or conqueror, and somehow his parents added that to his name. He was born in Africa, and they finally moved over to England. But and when he first submitted The Hobbit, he sent it to the Unwin publishers, and Charles Unwin, or Rayner, one of them, Charles, I think, the father, gave it to his 12-year-old son and said, read this and give me a review. And Rayner Unwin...
The kid was only 12 years old?
Yeah, Rayner Unwin, I think was his name, wrote 2 paragraphs and said, this is a great story about an adventure and about a little man, and it was so well done that his father took on the book and published The Hobbit.
Wow. Now,
I heard that when Tolkien finished The Lord of the Rings, it was a manuscript that stood as tall as him. I don't know if that's true, but I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, they stacked the papers up. I can't imagine writing that thing with a typewriter.
I can't either. Did he write it with a typewriter?
Me?
Did J.R.
Yeah, that's all he had in those days. He didn't have a computer.
Wow. Now describe, if you will, the story that he told for folks that are unfamiliar with the Lord of the Rings.
He's talking about the Rangers, the Dunedain, and that's who Strider come from. That's Aragorn, who eventually becomes king. But they're the kings of the north and the Rangers of the north, and they fight against evil and Sauron, who is very evil, overlord in Mordor. And he's talking about them, and suddenly this new character that he has, he tells Jack, C.S. Lewis, that instead of Strider, or instead of Trotter, I'm going to name him Strider, and he's going to become Aragorn, the son of Arathorn. So yeah, he tells a story about the Rangers of the North and how this character evolved. It's pretty,
Really?
yeah.
Now, who revealed this tale to him?
Well, he thinks, and I just made this up, of course, but he thinks an elven lord came to him in a dream and revealed this story that was already written long ago. And
Really?
I think a lot of writers can relate to that, because some writers, they don't know where their stories are coming from, and there's kind of a cosmic conscience out there.
Wow.
And yeah, and they pick up something and suddenly they go with it. And I just imagine an elven lord sitting down and revealing the whole story to Tolkien. And yeah,
That's
so
a
it's
great image.
yeah, it's made up, but it could happen.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
Now, would you say, what line did you attribute to James Barrie?
What's that?
What line did you attribute to James Barrie, the Peter Pan writer?
What line? I don't remember.
I thought you said something really clever about him. He was, I'll remember if I try, but yeah.
Um,
The boy who would,
oh, the boy would never grow up. Peter
the
Pan.
boy who would never grow up. Yep.
Yeah.
I thought that was equally fascinating.
Well, he's trying to be like his brother for his mother. So she was grief-stricken about his 14-year-old brother. So yeah, he was. That's where Peter Pan came from. The development of that is,
Wow.
yeah, and kind of interesting. I mean,
The boy who would never grow up is a great image.
yeah, yeah, it is. And the Lost Boys.
Yep. All right. This ends today's interview. We'll get more into details of Here There Be Dragons in next interview. And the author is Tom Frye. The publisher is Whitecap Publications. And you get all his books on Amazon. They're really worth reading.
Yeah, really audible.com. Remember to mention that, Rick.
Oh, they're available on audible.com too as recorded books.
Yep.
They're great. For those of you who don't have time to read, I'd advise listening to it in this format, right?
For those who are traveling all over the place and have to travel in a car, it's great to listen to those,
Yes, yes. Now, Tom, how do the people get a hold of you?
Well, tomfrye.org is my website, and
all right, tomfrye.org.
Yeah, and authorfrye@gmail is my email.
Authorfrye@gmail is your email, right?
Yeah.
All right. Until next time, my friend, I'll see you later. See you soon. Be healthy and well.
All right. Thanks, Rick.